We have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Dr. Ivan Misner, the founder and chief veterinary officer of BNI. It's an absolute pleasure to have him in the room with us. But to be fair, I've had very, very little to do with the organising of this, and so I'd like to hand it over and give absolute credit to all of this to Liam Mulligan. Liam has done a brilliant job pulling this together and organising everything and organising the questions as well. So Liam, sir, it's all yours.
That's very kind. Thank you very, very much. I've never been more excited, I have to say. So, well, thank you. Okay, it gives me great pleasure to announce our speaker for today, our wonderful guest. Let me just read out his biography, so give you a bit more information about him. Dr. Ivan Misner is the founder of BNI. Today, the organisation has over 9,600 chapters on every populated continent of the world. He is a New York Times best-selling author. He's written 24 books. He has been featured in the LA Times, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, as well as the BBC and the Today Show on NBC. He has been called the father of modern networking by CNN and one of the top networking experts by Forbes. He is considered by most to be one of the world's leading authorities on the topic. Additionally, the John C. Maxwell organization has named him the Transformational Leader of the Year. It gives me fantastic pleasure to say, welcome, Ivan.
Thank you, Liam. Thanks for inviting me to this, Mike and Liam. I appreciate it. Hey, you know, I'm just glad they're not calling me the grandfather of modern networking now, so it's all good. I'll share my screen with you. I've got about 30 minutes worth of material that I hope you will find inspirational and, more importantly, tangible. There'll be some tangible ideas here for you. And then I'm going to open it up for questions. I think you've already had questions submitted, and I'm happy to answer any question you've got. The only dumb question is the unasked question. So let me share my screen, and we will get started here. So first of all, we're all in this together. You know, I've been running BNI for 35 years, involved in BNI for 35 years. I've never seen anything like COVID. This was new for everybody. And I think it's really important to have the right mindset when you're dealing with chaos and challenges. I don't even like calling it the lockdown, the quarantine. This is the great pause. And I try to find positive things within a negative situation. And one of the positive things is that it certainly has given me an opportunity to be at home more. You know, I have 2.3 million miles on just one airline. So this is the longest I have ever been at home in my entire married life. I've been married 31 years to my wife, Elizabeth, who I met in BNI. It was the best referral I ever got. And so there are a lot of challenges. I mean, think about this for a moment. BNI, we have now since that bio, now 9,700 chapters in more than 70 countries. We met every week in person. This was incredibly disruptive for almost all businesses, including BNI. So we are all in this together. And now we have a double whammy of both the COVID virus and now the resulting recession that's taking place in most countries, including the US, all around the world. So let me jump into some of my thoughts here. First of all, I don't think we should be calling this social distancing. It's physical distancing, not social distancing. You need to be more social than ever. It is critical that you be very social, very connected, but just in a different way, not necessarily in person, but being social is still important. The bottom line here is don't stop networking, just do it differently. And there are a few things that I want to talk about here for a moment about mindset in addition to physical distancing versus social distancing. Here's the first recommendation I have for you right now, and I think this is a really important one. It is so important right now, and I think most of the time, but particularly right now, to microdose your news, microdose the news. I don't even watch the news anymore, but I have apps, and so I'll read the news first thing in the morning. I'll pick the things that I think are important, and I'll read those. And by the way, BBC is one of the apps that I use. for microdosing the news, but taking a look at what's going on in the world. And so I have a friend who is spending 6 or 8 hours a day sitting behind a TV watching the news. And I'm here to tell you that when you do that, you are convinced that the sky is falling, the world is coming to an end, things will never be the same. And this is a huge mistake to make. What we need to be doing right now is looking for solutions. It's more important than ever to be looking for solutions, not being so totally focused on how bad things are. Yeah, things aren't real good in many places for a lot of people, and I get that. But we have to be looking for solutions, not be focusing on the problem. If one of your fellow countrymen, good friend of mine, he wrote the book Solutions Focus, and he's from the United Kingdom. And his name is Mark McCurgow, Dr. Mark McCurgow. And one of the things that he says that I really love is that if all you do is focus on problems, you become an expert at problems. But if you look for solutions, you can become an expert at solutions. Instead, what I think a lot of people are doing, not saying you are, but what a lot of people I know are doing is they're basically throwing themselves a pity party. Things are horrible. I don't know what I'm going to do. And look, I've been there. I've thrown myself pity parties. People think that I'm always positive. No, not true. I have down days just like anyone else. And I've thrown myself pity parties where I felt really bad and just, nothing was going right. The thing is, when it's over, I'm in the same exact situation. I just feel worse. So what I'm talking about is taking control of your life and doing the things that you can do in the circumstances that we have now. I want to talk for a moment about disruption, because we have all been incredibly disrupted, but disruption is not something new. Businesses have been going through disruption for a long, long time. And I want to give you a little overview of some massive companies that have been highly disrupted over the last few decades. One is a company, I don't know if they're in the UK, they were the North America's largest retailer for a century, and that's Sears. Sears was the North America's largest retailer. They had what's called a Sears catalog. And I remember as a kid, we'd get the big Sears catalog, it'd be that thick. And you could buy anything in the Sears, you could buy a home that would get brought by a tractor trailer. They would unload it, and then you built your own home. There were kits, home kits. You could buy anything from Sears. Well, the interesting thing is that Sears catalog business started to slow down. And so they decided that in 1993, catalog business was dead. And they shut down their catalog business in 1993. In 1994, Amazon opened their doors. You see, Amazon saw that the catalog business wasn't dead. It was alive and well, but it was online. It wasn't a printed catalog. Sears could have been the Amazon of today had they had the foresight to say, wait a minute, there's this crazy thing called the internet, and maybe we should take a look at that for our catalog. Here's another one. This is to me mind-boggling. Kodak. I had a good friend in Kodak who he retired from Kodak, and he said that he felt that there were a few corporate blunders as staggering as Kodak's decision to ignore the digital camera market. Well, that in and of itself is, it's like, okay, maybe they didn't see that coming. But here's what you may or may not know. Kodak invented the digital camera. They invented it. They created the trademark for the digital camera in about 1978. Management at Kodak said, we don't want to take away business from our film processing enterprises. And, besides, nobody's going to ever look at photographs on a computer. That was the dialogue. And I have a friend who was an executive here there, and that was the dialogue that was going on. So what they did was they licensed their digital patent to other companies. How'd that work out for them? Kodak has filed bankruptcy. They are a shell of the company that they used to be. Here's another company. Again, this one I think was mostly in North America, but it's important as to the company that I'm comparing it to. Blockbuster was a video store. It was a franchise, and they were in a number of countries. When the winds of change swept through the video industry, Blockbuster was more of a brick than a weather vane. Netflix came to Blockbuster twice and asked Blockbuster, they were having financial troubles, and they asked Blockbuster if Blockbuster would like to buy them for $50 million. Blockbuster said no both times. As a matter of fact, the CEO of Blockbuster at that time went on record as saying, look, Netflix isn't even on our radar as a competitor. They're not on our radar. Today, Blockbuster is completely dissolved and Netflix is worth 100 billion US dollars worth in terms of valuation. 100 billion. These are all companies that allowed disruption to put them out of business. So I want to talk about networking and disruption. And so I'm going to pull out my crystal ball here and talk about the future of networking. Now, this was a few years ago. I shaved my beard since then. But, pull out the crystal ball, take a look at where the world is going on networking. Now, here's the interesting thing. This slide and the next 3 or 4 slides I'm going to show you, I have been talking about for 2 years. As a matter of fact, I wrote an article for entrepreneur.com in 2018 talking about this. And one of the things that I said was that in the networking industry, we, BNI, wants to lead the disruption, not become disrupted. And so what I urge you to do is to also consider the same approach. Do your best to lead the disruption, be in the lead of the disruption that's going to be taking place. Because if you think COVID and this recession are the last bits of disruption for a while, you're mistaken. There will be more and more disruption. And so 2 years ago, I started talking about this very subject. And what I said back then was that the future of networking is mixed reality technologies. That mixed reality being 3D technologies, holographic technologies, technologies that really make you feel like you are fully present in the moment. And it's, this technology is fantastic. I mean, I can't imagine this in 1985 when I started BNI. When I started BNI, the second largest line item in my budget was the telephone bill. No kidding. It was the second largest item. Salaries were number 1. Telephone bill was number 2. Today, I don't even know where the phone bill is in our budget. It's so small. It's insignificant. So technologies have come so far, and I think that they're going to go even further. As a matter of fact, Linden Labs 2 years ago said that mixed reality technology within the next 5 to 10 years will be as commonplace as an iPhone. Mixed reality technologies will be as commonplace as an iPhone. And when that happens, I predicted that BNI would be highly disrupted. Now, I didn't see the COVID virus coming, but I did see the absolute critical nature for us to get on board with technologies. Who knows where it's going to be 10 years from now? Maybe it's going to be like Star Wars, where we have Jedi Knights in a room, and there's a real Jedi Knight sitting there, and then a holographic Jedi Knight, and a couple of real Jedi Knights. Who knows what's going to happen? By the way, when we get to that point, I want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay, I'm just putting that out there. That's who I want to be. So, what was BNI's innovation? BNI's innovation was BNI Online. And I want you to think about this for a moment. 9,000, in January, we had 9,600 groups meeting every week in person. I'd like to think that my throwing out this wave of the future planted some seeds, because when I first started talking to executive directors and national directors about technology and the disruption that lie ahead, they were like, no, you can't say that. You founded a face-to-face in-person meeting and we can't do online. And the pushback was extensive. The pushback was like Kodak. We don't want to take away from our existing business. I'm really proud to say that the CEO for BNI, Graham Weimiller, man, he was looking around a corner, because in January of this year, he transitioned all of China to online. And we transitioned a few test regions around the world. By February, we transitioned all of Italy. By March, we transitioned most of the world to BNI online. So here we could have been, look, I could have literally seen my company, the company I started 35 years ago, go up in viral smoke had we not been thinking about this in advance and being prepared to have some innovation. I hate change. I hate change, I really do. And what's really funny is that when we started making this transition, I had a chapter president. It was the last in-person presentation I made. And we were telling everybody, you're gonna be transitioning to online. And I had a president who said, we got a member in our chapter. And you know, he's a baby boomer and doesn't like technology too much. And he said, he wasn't going to come to the online meetings. And she said, what do I tell him? Because I mean, it took everything in our power to get him on the mobile app to do thank you for closed business. Now he's got to come to the meetings online. What do I tell him? And I don't usually tell people to say this first phrase I'm going to give you, but I told her, tell him this. Tell him Ivan hates change. I do, I really do. I hate change. I don't know a whole lot of people who love change. Some people do. My wife loves change. I hate change. The only thing I hate worse than change is failure. I really hate failure. Tell him he can change or he can fail. The choice is his. You can't make him change. Tell him, I can't make you change. You have to be willing to make this commitment. But if you are, I will be there for you. I said, tell him, you'll be there for him. You'll help him in the process. You'll assist him in learning how to use this so that he can weather this storm, so that he can get through this and not only survive, but thrive during these difficult times. And I'm really proud to say, he said yes. Now, mind you, he didn't say, yay, I'll do it. No, he said, all right, I'll do it, okay. But he did it. And he's still a member of the chapter and he's meeting online. I don't know what our future holds, but I do know we can influence it. We can influence it. And so how do we influence it with this online platform that we're on? I would recommend you go to an article I wrote, go to ivanmisner.com. ivanmisner.com. Spelling is up there on the screen on the top left corner. And the website is ivanmisner.com. Go there and look at an article I wrote on March 19th of this year, March 19th. It will go into detail some of the things I'm going to talk to you about right now, about how you make the most of your online networking. First of all, the first thing that you really need to do is to activate your network. You have got to activate your network. Now more than ever, you need your network. And one thing that I have learned over the years is that most people during difficult times go to one of two directions. They either become frozen in fear or they become focused by fear. I believe you can be focused by this fear. I mean, everybody is concerned. Even if you don't want to call it fear, it's a concern. Everyone has this concern. Let that concern focus you rather than freeze you. Look, I still think that in-person networking is one of the strongest ways to build your business, but right now it's not safe in many areas of the world. And so let's make the best of this and do the things online that we can. And businesses are. I've seen a furniture reupholstery shop in the United States who, not exactly an essential business. They had to let go of all their employees. And in doing one-to-ones with members online, their fellow members, someone said to them, hey, gee, you got a lot of cloth, don't you, in your warehouse? And she said, I literally have tons of cloth. He said, have you thought about making COVID masks? She said, no. He said, why don't you try it? And so she made 100 COVID masks and she gave 2 to all of the members of her network of BNI and some close friends. And she said, would you give one, keep one yourself, would you give one to a nurse, to a doctor, to a hospital, to a nursing home, and show it to them and see if they're interested and they can order masks? Now, this was in the beginning when masks were in short supply. And she got inundated with orders. She was able to hire back all of her employees. They physically distanced. They built COVID masks. She was able to keep her doors open. There was a brewery, a microbrewery in Australia. BNI member, same story, doing a one-to-one. Somebody said to him, hey, you got a lot of alcohol. Because he wasn't selling beer because nobody was going to bars. He said, yeah, I got a lot of alcohol. He said, have you thought about making COVID hand sanitizer? Because hand sanitizer was in short supply. He's like, no, what a great idea. He went into the hand sanitizer business, was able to hire everybody back and keep his doors alive, keep his doors open. Now look, not everybody can create a COVID business, but you can still do business. I mean, think about it. Since March, BNI has done over $4 billion US worth of business in thank you for closed business since March. I said this on a radio show just a few days ago, and the host stopped me and she said, whoa, wait a minute. Could you repeat that? And I said, yes, since March, BNI members have passed over $4 billion US worth of business for one another, according to BNI Connect, which is based on what the members enter. And she was blown away. She was shocked that we could be doing business. And you can be doing business, but the only way to do it is to activate your network, which means you need to do a lot of online face-to-face meetings. One of the biggest complaints that I had before COVID was, I don't have time to network. And I had to talk about why networking is part of their marketing time. It's part of the time that you need to spend marketing your business. Well, look, you got time now. You should be doing an online face-to-face meeting every day with at least one person to be activating and managing your business, your networking business by connecting with your fellow members. Now, most of you who've read any of my stuff, you know about what I call the VCP process. So I'm not going to spend much time on this. It's visibility, credibility, profitability. You first have to be visible, then you establish credibility, then you get to profitability. So my advice to you when you do these one-to-ones is go in reverse order. Start with the people that you're already at profitability with. Start with the people that you know well, maybe your fellow BNI members, and you sit down and you do a one-to-one with them. And I'll talk about what you should include in that one-to-one. When you've done all the people that you're at profitability with, then go to credibility. And when you get through all the people that you're at profitability and credibility with, then start looking at visibility. So go in reverse order with your one-to-ones. One of the things that you want to do is say to people, how are you doing? Everything okay? How can I help you? I think these are magic words in business. How can I help you? And look, you may not be able to help everyone, but you can help someone. I said this on another radio show. It's a different radio show about a month ago. And the talk show host said to me, yeah, come on. I mean, this whole thing with how can I help you? It's such a tired old phrase. Nobody does it anymore. And it's funny because I said to him, well, actually, you don't have to say, how can I help you? You can do it in another way. And he said, yeah. Well, I didn't want to argue with him on air. So afterwards, we were off air and I said, hey, are you looking for any more guests? What kind of guests are you looking for? And he gave me some names. And I said, yeah, I know both of them. Would you like me to reach out to them and ask them if they'd like to be on your show? And he said, wow, you know them. Yes, great. Would you? I said, yes. Long story short, they both said yes. And I said to him, and that's another way you can say, how can I help you? And he said, touche. And I said, no, it's not touche. I'm trying to walk the talk and show you that it really can work. And you don't have to say, how can I help you? You can just, ask them, is this what you're looking for? Is this what you need? And if you can, do it for them. Look, when I asked these guys whether they were willing to do the show, I didn't know if they were or not, but I asked because I knew he wanted it. And that helped make a good connection. Now, when you're doing one-to-ones, I urge you to use the gains exchange. You've got this in all the BNI material has the gains exchange. It stands for goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. If you don't have it, ask Mike or Liam for a copy of it. You can also find it in a number of my books, including the second edition of Networking Like a Pro. And so I urge you to use the gains exchange when you do these one-to-ones. And I also urge, I've learned that sometimes one person, if you do all gains at once, sometimes one person takes more time than the other. So I recommend that you do it one at a time. You tell me your goals, I tell you mine. You tell me your accomplishments, I tell you mine. You tell me your interests, I tell you mine. So I have found early on that this works very effectively, because when you find someone that has overlapping areas of interest with you, you can expedite the relationship. And I saw this in the very first time I did it, where two people had never given each other a referral in a year, and yet they sat down, did a gains exchange, found out that they were both soccer coaches or football coaches for their son's team, and all of a sudden they became good friends, and within a month they passed each other a referral after they hadn't given one to each other ever in the chapter. Gains exchange, great technique, particularly with the people that you're at profitability and credibility with. Okay. You're getting material. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I'm giving you a lot of stuff. I'll be wrapping it up here soon for questions. You can weather this storm. You can weather this storm. You can be empowered by utilizing the network of contacts that you have. This will pass. This will pass, and what's coming will pass, because what's coming is we're headed into a recession in almost all countries. And I want to tell you about the first recession that I went through. The first recession I went through as the founder of BNI in 1990, 5 years after BNI, and I was at a mixer. It was a Chamber of Commerce mixer. And I'm at this mixer, and the recession had just hit. The real estate market had dropped precipitously. And the only topic of discussion at this mixer was how bad business was. That was it. Everyone was obsessed about how bad business was. And I saw some guy standing in a corner by himself. I went over, I introduced myself. I don't know why I said it. As soon as I said it, I wish I hadn't. I said, how you doing? How's business? And as soon as I said it, I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's going to tell me how bad business is. And he said, oh, business is great. I said, business is great. He said, yeah, business is really good. I said, what business are you in? He said, real estate. I said, whoa, wait a minute. You're in real estate and business is good? Real estate just dropped. He said, yeah. I said, you're having a good year? He said, well, actually, I'm having my best year ever. I said, you're having your best year ever in real estate? How could that possibly be? And he said, oh, wait, hang on. He reached into his coat pocket and he pulled out a button, and he pulled the button out and it said, I refuse to participate in a recession. I looked at him and I said, that's it? You have a button, so you're having a great year. He said, no, it's more than that. It's the attitude. Remember, I talked about attitude. It's the attitude that comes with it. It's the mindset that comes with the refusal to participate in a recession. I said, all right, school me on this. Take me to school. How does that play out in real estate? He said two big ways. First of all, real estate investors. I'm going to real estate investors and I'm saying, hey, look, I got a duplex. You got to take a look at this duplex. I've never seen real estate this inexpensively. You've got to let me show this to you. You cannot come to me 2 years from now and say, oh man, I wish I would have bought that duplex because prices are going back up again. You can't do that. So you got to at least look at it. So I'm showing real estate to people and they're buying because I'm showing it to them. I said, all right, what's the second one? He said, first-time home buyers. First-time home buyers. I'm going to them and I'm going, real estate's on sale right now. You couldn't have bought a house a year ago, but you can get into a home today. Interest rates are low. The prices are down. And he said, I'm selling more first-time home buyers than I ever sold in my life. He said, look around the room. He said, you know, that's a real estate agent over there. I said, yeah, I met her. He said, what's she talking about? How bad business is. And that's a real estate agent over there. What's he talking about? I said, I met him. He's talking about how bad business is. He said, what about that guy? I didn't meet him. He said, trust me, he's talking about how bad business is. He said, this is the beautiful thing about me taking this approach of the right mindset and finding opportunities. And most other real estate agents, he said, in a year, I'm going to have half the competition that I have today. It's even better because they don't get it, that there are opportunities. And they're buying into it all. They're not looking for those opportunities. And they're going to be in a different industry next year. When I heard that from him, I literally went back to my office the next week and I made up thousands of buttons that say, I refuse to participate in a recession. I suggest that you join me and refuse to participate in a recession. Some of you may say, yeah, but Ivan, it's hard to maintain your network when business is down. It's hard, certainly hard to bring in members when business is down. Yeah, no, it's not. Let me show you why. This is BNI's growth chart in the last 35 years. From 1985 to 2019, this is our growth. I defy you to find the recessions over the last 35 years. There were 3 prior to this. Here was the first one. Now, you can't really tell because, at that time we had maybe 100 chapters, so the growth doesn't show as well in a chart like this, but I can tell you that our growth went up 30%, over 30% from 1990, and there's a typo here, I got to fix that, from 1990 to 1991, that should be 91. We went up 30% in 1990 to 1991. Here's the second recession in 2001. You couldn't tell it unless I'm showing it to you. And of course, the Great Recession of 2008. Look what happened to our membership. And times are tough. You need your network more than ever. The first reaction from people will be, I can't afford to join something else. You got to tell them you can't afford not to, because you need your network more than ever. And maybe you haven't built your network. And I quote the old proverb that says, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? The answer is 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. Start to build your network today. You need it more than ever today. That is so incredibly important. All right. If you wait until tough times are over, your business will be over. Don't wait for tough times to be over. We don't know when that'll be. But I know so many BNI members that have literally thrived during recessionary economies, not just struggle through recessionary economies. I believe hope is more powerful than fear. And I'm about ready to open it up for questions. Liam, I believe hope is more powerful than fear. Hope is that little voice inside you whispering about what can be when everyone around you is screaming what can't be. Hope plus a plan plus action will help you get through difficult times. Have hope. You have a plan and you have a system to act upon, and that's BNI. Today, more than ever, you need BNI. Beth, can you shut my door? Oh, sorry, you guys heard that. I thought I microphoned that. I thought I muted that. Sorry about that. Today, more than ever, you guys need BNI. You need BNI online today more than ever. Okay, with that, let me open it up for any questions that you may have.
Wonderful, Ivan. I'm going to unmute everybody. Can Lancashire, Manchester, and Kirklees and Calder give Ivan a round of applause for his fantastic presentation? Wonderful. And then I'm going to mute you all again. So, there you go, there you go. Ivan, you may have to unmute yourself actually there if you don't mind. Find your button. I mean, my first question is, did Beth close the door?
She did. I'm sorry. I thought for sure I muted it, but it didn't click. So there was a lot of noise going on in the background.
No, it's good. It's good to know, though. It's good to know. Right. Well, we have some questions from our members that have been flooding in, and we just have to thank you very much for doing that presentation. So the first question that we had in was, when we look back in 5 to 10 years from now, what do you predict will be the key challenges to mitigate and the key opportunities to maximize from businesses around the world and BNI?
Well, I think I talked about that a bit. I think mixed reality technologies can be an even bigger game changer in networking and in BNI. I wrote an article go to entrepreneur.com, and you can find the article I wrote back in 2018. It was December of 2018, where I talk about the future of face-to-face networking is online. And if you do a search for that, you'll find the article. And I think that's true. But I also think technologies are going to be a disruption to most businesses. I met a futurist about 6 months ago, and he talked about how, people are just stuck in old technologies. He drove to the event that he was speaking at, and the driver was using his telephone to take calls, for his mobile phone to take calls to pick up people. And he was saying, man, that's old technology. You need to have a website. You need people to book you online. And he said, by the way, you need to be charging more than you are. You're not charging enough. And the guy said, I can't charge more. He said, yes, you can. Here's how you do it. Create 2 websites. One website at this price, one website at this price. See which one gets more. Take a look at your value proposition in terms of return on investment for creating those websites. It's quite possible that the one that charges more, because you got a nice car, you can charge more. And so he said, that's the utilization of the technologies that exist today. You need to think, you need to pull out that crystal ball. You need to talk to people in your industry about what's coming down the road and how you can implement technologies. You don't have to lead it, just don't follow far behind. You want to be at the cutting edge of technologies in the future. And that's certainly what we're trying to do in BNI. Great question.
Brilliant. So something a bit more specific to being a member now. So what would your advice be to a member who is following all the rules, they're giving lots, they're making themselves visible, taking on roles, conducting one-to-ones, all the things that you would expect, but they're still struggling just to get the exact referrals that they desire?
That's a fantastic question. And the answer to that question begins with the devil is in the details of what the person's doing. Because, just being active doesn't mean you're doing the right things or that you're doing it well. So, let's assume that you're doing it well, that you're doing those things. Oftentimes what's going on, even though you're doing one-to-ones and you're making the meetings, there may be some other things that you're not doing. Like, are you nailing your weekly presentation? I mean, nailing your weekly presentation. That is critical. You have to remember that in BNI, your focus should not be on making a sale. Your focus should be on training a sales force. You're training people how to refer you. So I'm going to recommend 3 podcasts that'll give you 10, 12 minutes for each. You'll get half an hour worth of great content on doing a great weekly presentation. If you do these things and you do those other things you talked about, you will get referrals. It's podcast number 565, LCDs in your weekly presentation, 565. Podcast number 537, specific is terrific, 537, and podcast number 404, standing in the middle of referrals. These 3 podcasts will help you nail your weekly presentations. One last thing. Remember, BNI is a marathon, not a sprint. I see people who they join BNI and they're sprinting, man, they're doing it all, and they get burned out. And after a year, they're burned out. It's a marathon, slow and steady, doing the right things, slow and steady. We have hard data that shows that when people are involved in BNI for 1 year versus 6 months, they get way more referrals. For 2 years versus 1 year, they get way more referrals. For 3 years versus 1 more, there's a direct and dramatic linear correlation by length of membership and the quantity of referrals they get. That plateaus out a bit at about 5 years. But what happens is, and I've talked to people who've been in for 5 years, they say, yeah, the quantity starts to plateau a bit at 5 years, but the quality continues to go up. And so your net income goes up, even though the quantity of referrals maybe plateaus at around 5 years. We have hard data to show that. And so do the things that you just outlined, Liam, and make sure you're nailing your one-to-ones, I mean, your weekly presentations, and of course your one-to-ones, so that you're training a sales force as opposed to trying to make a sale. Great question.
Excellent advice. Excellent. Right. To what extent does BNI have as a voice of business and industry in representing its members? Should it always be apolitical as an organisation?
So I have a bachelor's degree in political science. I have very strong political opinions, but you don't know what they are, because I don't believe I should use the BNI platform to tell you how to believe in anything political, because that's not what BNI is about. That's not what I should be doing as the founder. And I have strong political opinions, and I'm pretty confident that most people don't know what they are, because I am silent within BNI. Outside BNI, I'll talk about it, but inside BNI, I'm silent about it because of my experience. I have some experience with this and seeing chapters talking politics. If you want to blow up your chapter, talk politics. It'll blow up your chapter faster than anything I have ever seen, because it is so divisive. People get so angry. And I saw this 35 years ago. Today, it's worse than ever. People get so angry. And so if you intentionally want to, boom, blow up your chapter, talk politics. That's the reason why we stay out of it. Politics, BNI is a politics-free zone. And I think it needs to stay that way. I've done a podcast on this. It's podcast number, I don't see the number. Do a search on politics and religion on BNI podcast, politics and religion. And I think it's one of the reasons why we've been so successful is that we say this is a free space to do business. And it's one of the reasons why I did one person per profession, a safe space to talk about yourself, to talk about what you do without your competitor in the room. I want it to be a safe space to not get beat up by people who disagree with you politically. If you absolutely want to talk politics, then tell people, hey, I'm doing a meeting outside of here, tonight at my house. Come, we can talk about it. That's fine. You want to do that outside the meeting, just don't be surprised if some people don't give you referrals afterwards because they don't like your politics. But do it outside the meeting, but do it. I believe you should be civically involved. Do it, just not in BNI. I hope that answers the question, Liam. And check out that.
Great answer. Great answer. I mean, you inspire a lot of people around the world. So fantastic. But who do you look for inspiration? And have you had a very good piece of advice from that person?
Oh, there's so many people that I look for. I have become very good friends with Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul and the Success Principles. And he's a good friend, and I've learned a lot from him. I've had an opportunity to spend a fair amount of time with Richard Branson. Man, I thought I was good at networking until I watched him. He's amazing at connecting with people at all levels of an organization. I went to school on him years ago when I first met him. He's just incredible at connecting with people that are, he's a billionaire. He talks to a maid the same way he talks to another billionaire. And it's very nice, by the way. He treats them both the same. I think for me personally, one of the best bits of advice I got was from my mother. She passed away a few years ago. But one of the things that she said in terms of inspiration was, as you get older, she said, be prepared to deal with change. And change again. And change again. And change again. It's lifelong. And if you're not in the right mindset to be prepared to deal with change, you're going to be a very unhappy old man. And she was right. And I don't like change, but I recognize it's inevitable, and I better learn how to deal with the kinds of changes that are coming down the road. And that was probably the best bit of advice I think we've had.
So leading on from that, someone's asked, what has been your biggest challenge in business? So, you talked about recessions.
Yeah, the recessions were no challenge for us in BNI. COVID was I would say today it's COVID because, nobody knew how to deal with that, but we have saved this business. We have saved this company. I'd like to think that we have saved hundreds of thousands of businesses because we've been able to do online. So this is probably the biggest, but for me personally in running the company, because I don't run the day-to-day management of BNI anymore. I think the biggest challenge was BNI Connect. When I released BNI Connect in 2011, it wasn't what I promised. Wow, people were mad, really, really, really mad. And it took a lot of work to get that right. And today I cannot imagine running BNI without the BNI mobile app, without BNI Connect, without BNI University. And it started with BNI Connect. We did everything by hand up until 9 years ago. By hand. That was a mess. And so BNI Connect was brutally difficult. It has cost millions and millions and millions of dollars to produce. And I mean, there are very few privately held companies that have created their own online platform like this. I mean, most companies are major public companies like LinkedIn or Facebook that have created online platforms. And so it was a massive undertaking. And it's an ongoing project. It's never going to be done, but it's way better than it was 9 years ago.
Very good. Thank you very much for that brilliant answer. So someone's asked, what was your favourite role within a chapter? Have you carried out all the roles, or what was your favourite if you had?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. Yeah, I have been asked that. It's a great question. I've never been asked what my favorite role was. I think if I remember today, I would love to be the visitor host, because it's all about being a connector. You're connecting one person to another person. And the more you can be a connector, the more powerful your personal network will be. And so I would love to be the visitor host of a chapter or the education coordinator, because I love to teach. My passion, this is my flame. I think an entrepreneur is either working in their flame or working in their wax. And when they're working in their flame, they're on fire. They're excited. They love what they do. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in the way they behave. So teaching is my flame. I love it. When you're working in your wax, by the way, it takes all your energy away, and you don't like it. And so I would visitor host or education coordinator. Now, the answer to the other question is the only role I have ever had in a chapter was the president. I was the chapter president of the very first chapter of BNI, which, by the way, is still around today. Almost 36 years later. They are now called the Founders Chapter for obvious reason. And they're still around today. And I'm in contact with the president on a fairly regular basis. There's a little bit of my heart for that group. So president was the only role I held. And are you guys calling them presidents now, or are you still calling them chapter directors?
Presidents, yeah, we're presidents, yeah. So,
UK originally was chapter directors, but I'm glad you made the transition, because the rest of the world is there with that title. And so, yeah, it's the only one I did. I loved it. It was great, but it's the only one I did.
Awesome. Someone has asked, what have you got still left to learn, do you think, about networking and communication?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question as well. So when I took my doctoral exams at USC, it was a 2-hour exam. Well, it was 32 hours of testing, 2 hours of orals. And the 2-hour oral had 5 professors in a semicircle around me. And they did a round robin for 2 solid hours, no breaks, asking me really complex questions about management and organizational behavior, which is, and leadership. Those were my areas of focus in my degree. Here's the answer to your question. I walked out of that 2-hour session truly understanding for the first time in my life how little I really knew about the things that I was supposed to be an expert on. It's true. I walked out of there thinking, I'm an idiot. Man, they just tore me apart. I later learned that was part of the process, to show PhD students that no matter how smart they are or how smart they think they are, they don't know everything. And of course, with 5 of them, they all had a little niche, and they all came in prepared to talk about that. Maybe I wasn't. So the answer is that lifelong learning is one of BNI's core values, because I truly believe that it is an important part of someone's success. And I'm still learning, and I hope to have that attitude for the rest of my life. I've never gone to a conference where I didn't get a new idea. And as soon as you stop learning, you start stagnating. And I'm not ready for that yet. So I'm still learning, and I think lifelong learning is a critical core value in BNI.
Perfect. 3 quick fire questions to finish off.
Yeah.
We were asked, what's your favorite country to visit? Quick fire question.
Honestly, home. I've spent so little time at home. I love being home. However, if you want a more detailed answer, I think today it just went up on my blog. My wife here in Galveston, I'm at my beach condo in Galveston. Yeah, just today, go to ivanmisner.com. Elizabeth asked me that question, where's my favorite place in the world? And I did a longer answer on that on a blog today. It's a video blog. And you can see me here at my condo answering Beth that question.
Awesome. We'll go and have a look at that. What's your favorite comfort food, Ivan?
Hummus. Love hummus with Tabasco. Oh, I love Tabasco. So
not pizza.
No. So I'm a fanatic about health. I had cancer 8 years ago, and I mean, I love pizza. It's just not healthy. And so I'm on a very strict diet that is fun. It's a great diet, but I stay away from processed foods completely. I eat organic. I eat no processed foods, no sugar, virtually no exceptions. And I had cancer 8 years ago. I'm completely in remission. And I have never done surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy. I went into remission by changing my diet. So I'm pretty fanatic about eating healthy.
Awesome work. Last quick fire question. What's your favorite podcast?
So, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but one of the ones I like is Akimbo with Seth Godin. He just did he did one recently that was about organized learning, and he's got some great concepts. I heard him speak just about 2 weeks ago on an online platform for a small group of people. And he had something that was just brilliant. He talked about writer's block. And he asked us all, have you ever had writer's block? And we're like, yeah, we have. He said, yes, there is no such thing as writer's block. He said, come on, think about it. If you're a plumber and you go into a bathroom and there's a sink that needs to be fixed, you don't go, hey, you know what? I got plumber's block today. I can't do this. He said, no, there's no such thing as writer's block. All you have to do is get focused and get through it. Do some research, get engaged. Plumbers don't have plumber's block. Writers don't have writer's block. I think he has some of the most pithy concepts that are really interesting. Love Seth Godin.
Wonderful. How can we help you? That's the last question. You like to help people. How can we help you?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So, there's, I think, a way that we can help each other, and that is I love doing interviews. So if you know somebody who's got a podcast, I'm happy to do a podcast. I'm happy to do media interviews, print interviews, particularly interviews that might be there in the UK, so that I can get more, so I can talk about BNI in the UK. I get them, but that would help us both, I think, a great deal. So if you know somebody, reach out to my assistant. Her name is Dana, Dana Coyle at BNI.com. That's DANACOYLE. Dana Coyle at BNI.com, and she'll schedule it.
Wonderful. Thanks. Thank you so much. Mike, do you want to just say something?
We've got time for one more question, because there's a lovely question that's come. That's a question I think it's a really interesting one, and because I think it's very relevant to where we are right now. I think it's kind of in a lot of members' minds about the returning to in-person meetings. There's a question coming from Janet Baird, one of our long-serving members from the Terriers chapter.
Okay, I'll take it, and I promise not to yell at my beautiful bride or yell to my beautiful bride anymore.
Yeah, it's the question is just about, there are some members who are really enjoying the online experience, but there's a lot of members that kind of want to get back to the in-person meetings. Do you see a time where we're going to have both happening, or hybrids happening meetings?
So no decision has been made. I'm going to give you my opinion, but not a decision. I think right now, with as crazy as things are, we have to learn to live with the discomfort, learn to live with the discomfort of not having answers. And that's a struggle for entrepreneurs. They want answers. And so I don't have an answer, but I do have an opinion. My opinion is the genie's out of the bottle. It'll never be quite the same for BNI. I think that we're likely to see, but again, we haven't made any decision on this. I think we're likely to see a hybrid of some kind. For a number of reasons, we need it to be geographically anchored. So it's possible that we'll have chapters that meet in person once a month and online 3 times, or twice a month and online twice, or maybe, you know, any combination. We're open to discussing, considering, evaluating. I'll tell you, the low-hanging fruit is for countries, and you don't get a whole lot of snow in the UK. The low-hanging fruit is for countries that have a really harsh winter with snow. In the US and Canada, they have what are called snow days for schools, and the schools are closed. And when the school closes, the chapter doesn't meet. So the chapter just says, if it's a snow day in school, we won't meet. I could see that being fixed so easily by saying, if it's a snow day in school, we meet online. That's a hybrid that we could do immediately in places around the world. And I think it'd be very effective. But I think it's inevitable that 5 or 10 years from now, I'm not going to be Kodak. I'm not going to be Sears. I'm not going to be Blockbuster. We're going to embrace the technology as it makes sense to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ivan. Ladies and gents, I would like us to all unmute, please. I want to give 2 rounds of applause, actually. I would like us all to give the first round of applause to Liam, put all this together, off his own back pretty much. So please, let's thank Liam for doing that. And then obviously, secondly, I would love us all, please, a massive round of applause. We really do appreciate your time, Ivan. Thank you so much for doing this. These are massive round of applause for Dr. Ivan Misner.
Thank you,
ladies and gents.
Appreciate it.